What if the woman that everyone believed to be homeless people ended up being the ones who irrevocably altered the life of a billionaire? At a glitzy New York City gala, a strong CEO startled everyone by demonstrating up with an enigmatic woman nobody acknowledged, someone he had abducted the roadway only a few hours earlier. However, what began as a daring social prank that backfired becomes something far more profound and hazardous. When the night was over, everything he believed he understood love, success, and they would test the truth. Hold off till the end, as her subsequent actions will leave you unable to speak. The rain drummed softly against Logan's tall windows, the penthouse of Whitaker on Manhattan's the Upper East Side. From so far above the city, everything appeared immaculate. Below, cars, lights glistened like stars, proceeded as planned, and the tumult of altitude masked real life and privilege. Logan was unfazed by it all, though Logan had everything a man could have at 42. Purchase, riches, influence, and renown. The Whitaker Capital's founder and a frequently featured on Forbes' cover, he had crafted an empire with cold accuracy. However, none of that mattered tonight. This evening, he sensed a void that he couldn't justify. Perhaps it was the quiet following his dramatic split from Sienna Cross as an international model, or perhaps while gazing into the golden skyline. It was the knowledge that everything, the red carpet and stage smiles, flings had gotten intolerably foreseeable. He was in need of something distinct, genuine, not a headline, and not a performance. Only one evening when the mask might come off, Logan put on his fitted navy coat, departed from his penthouse, and entered the cool city. Evening, although the rain had stopped, the pavement was still glistening. Traffic hummed, horns honked, and yet in the bustle of New York life, he moved alone. He turned the corner onto Lexington, his thoughts thick, and then he spotted her. She was hardly apparent in the shadows. Beneath a flickering street lantern, knees pulled to her chest, arms wrapped tightly around a ragged wool coat. Her hair was a waterfall of dark curls, unkempt and windy, and she glanced down at the sidewalk as though it had betrayed her long ago. People passed without staring, but Logan caught sight of her. There's something alluring about the way she sat, not defeated, not pathetic. She had a pause akin to a storm that had endured everything and remained intact. Itself as a whole, he took a step toward her. "Pardon me," he remarked in a composed tone, purposeful. Then she winced a little, looked up. She still had blue eyes, sharp and circumspect. "What do you want?" she inquired cautiously. "I am aware of this." "Strange," murmured Logan, with his hands in his pockets. "However, I've been invited to among the most prominent charitable organizations, galas in New York this evening, and I would want to accompany me on a date." She blinked. "Are you serious?" "Very." The returning to the Upper East Side by car was not in a negative sense, but silent. Grace took a seat. Her hands were neatly folded on her lap. Her bare body was still in the emerald gown, shoulders shimmering beneath the vehicle's gentle lights inside. She gazed out the window at the city's haze, not uncertain whether this was all a dream. She was about to wake up. Logan looked, glanced at her, then turned away. For once, a man who always knew what to do next. The next purchase, the next ingenious. The response was inarticulate. "You were amazing tonight," he said at last. Grace lowered her voice. "You mean I didn't make you look foolish in front of your millionaire pals?" He chuckled, effortlessly, taking them both by surprise. "Not even near. The only person in the situation was you. Who in the ballroom actually said something? Actual, they will remember you." She glanced down, tracing her fingers over the the material of her gown. "It wasn't the plan. I wasn't meant to raise your voice." Logan reclined. "Perhaps the best things don't happen." The vehicle entered the private driveway below his structure. For a brief while, neither of they shifted. Logan then opened his door and went outside to assist by strolling around her gently. "Come up," he urged. "You've experienced the most bizarre night of your existence. You are unable to return to sleep." Beneath a bus stop, as if nothing had occurred, Grace paused. Her feet hurt, champagne buzzing in her mind and adrenaline. However, her intuition told her this man was still dangerous the entire night. In an imperceptible manner, "I'm not skilled at this," she said, having faith in others. "I am aware," he answered. "I don't think you will. Simply get up and rest. I'm not owed anything by you. Last but not least, you owe me nothing." Anything was what eventually made a breakthrough. Her defenses. There was silence in his penthouse, warm and cozy, with tall windows framing the city like a work of art. Grace took a step, leaving her shoes behind and curling up on one. The white couch's end, Logan brought a cozy blanket and took a seat in the chair across from her. For a while, neither of them spoke. "I wasn't," she claimed to be constantly on the street, Eventually, I had a fiancé, a career, and a life. Logan listened without moving. He died, she said in a mournful voice. Vehicle collision 2 weeks prior to our marriage. And with that, everything else collapsed. I was unable to pay my rent. I lost my job, and all of a sudden, nobody answered my calls. Logan's affection clenched, not out of sympathy, but from a peculiar form of guilt. How many individuals had he gone by like her, pondering they were there due to their indolence or poor decisions? His words were, "I'm sorry. Gently, you didn't deserve that," she said. She shook her head. "Most people believe that I do, that I'm just sitting here as another failure, a pavement. Now that I know better," he answered, "due to you." Something moved in between them. Something deep, electrifying, and unsaid. He strolled, went into the kitchen, and came back with 2 teacups. Grace cautiously took hers, as if it would disappear. "May I ask you something?" As she spoke, she looked into her cup. "Why did you actually choose me for this evening? Anybody may have been your choice." He inclined ahead, leaning his elbows against his knees. "Since I seen you seated, something inside of me halted there. I've centered my entire existence on things that brightness, wealth, and status, but none of it has always felt authentic. You do?" When she looked him in the eyes, for the first, there was no wall between them at the time. Grace awoke the following morning the guest room appeared to have been taken from a high-end magazine. The sun overflowed the white bed linens. Her shoes and clothes were folded on the chair, polished next to it. There was a notice on the bedside table. "There's breakfast waiting. No pressure. Pancakes alone. Logan." She chuckled, genuinely chuckled. "Pancakes." Downstairs, Logan was standing near the stove. He was flipping them, a flour mess, on the countertop. He raised his head when she went in. "Boardrooms are where I thrive," he said. Sheepishly, he said, "You're making an effort." She answered, "That's something." They took a seat at Marble Island, as well as for a few minutes ate just like 2 regular folks. No headlines, titles, or past weighing them down until the door was knocked on. Arrived. When Logan opened it, he saw a man carrying a folder in a sharp navy suit. "Apologies," the man said, "to disturb Mr. Whitaker. I delivered the revised contracts for the merger of Kingsley." Logan scowled. "I stated that The man hesitated, wanting the weekend. "And there's a situation." He looked at Grace. She raised her head slightly, cautiously. Logan screamed, "Say it." The man glanced, uneasy. "There are images from last evening. They were sold by someone. They're all over TMZ. Page 6. Bloomberg. 2. She's being referred to as your new mistress. Investors are in a panic. PR expects a response right away." My stomach fell. She sensed the temperature rising. In front of her, naturally, she mumbled, "Ought should have known." Cinderella makes a U-turn. After the clock strikes the street rat, it's gossip time. Logan looked in her direction. Forceful voice. "Don't allow them to decrease you to a news story. Not after last night." However, Grace was already taking a step back. This was never meant to be true. "Logan, we were merely acting. Do you recall?" He reached for her hand and replied, "No, I wasn't acting." She gave him a look, eyes that were filled with grief and incredulity. "A billionaire is what you are. I'm a female who does not even possess a mobile phone. The world will devour me. I refuse to allow." He said, but she was already approaching the door. "You can't safeguard me against that." When the elevator, Logan felt a door close between them, more profound hollowness than anything he had ever recognized. That evening, he remained observing the same thing from the penthouse window. He had seen the skyline the previous evening, but not the city. But everything had changed. While a few blocks away, Grace tightened her coat, the $5,000 in her bag, unopened. Not yet. She wasn't certain if her heart aches for her, but things she never imagined experiencing. Hope once more. And that was what scared her the most. First and foremost, do you believe Grace was correct to leave Logan once the press has arrived? If you were in her, would you have revealed their shoes? Would you have remained and engaged in combat? Perhaps flee as well? Can love truly blossom between 2 individuals from such disparate worlds, or is it only a lovely delusion? If you were moved by this story, so let's know by putting a red drop or entering yes, heart in the remarks. Additionally, let us know, would you offer Logan or someone similar a second chance? She gazed doubtfully. "You're questioning an unfamiliar person seated to attend a black tie gala on the sidewalk." "Yes," responded Logan plainly. "You're not beyond my sight." A glimmer of something. Her face crossed. Rage and laughter. "What's the catch?" "No catch," he said. "Only your time. I'll give you $5,000. Just tonight." A strand was blown by the wind. Hair on her face. She tucked it in, slowly behind her ear. 5,000 for a single evening. Sure, one evening. No, strings. She rose slowly, her eyes never departing his. You're crazy. Perhaps he grinned. Will you, however, attend? She paused and looked down at her worn sneakers, then at last gave her hand. Logan Whitaker and Grace Taylor. In a matter of minutes, they were in a stylish Lincoln in black. Soaring down Fifth Avenue, Grace crossed her arms and sat rigidly, looking from the soft leather to inside and Logan's quiet assurance. I feel as if I'm in another person's life, she whispered. You are, he stated, just for tonight. The vehicle came to a stop in front of an upscale store. Glass. Inside, chandeliers glistened, and three stylists stood by the door, seemingly anticipating a regal status. Grace looked over at him. What is this? Will you even walk? You must accompany me into the lion's lair. Armor, he answered. Allow them to turn you into their work of art. I don't wish to be an undertaking. You're not, Logan said, whispered. You're the centerpiece. After hesitating, she went outside. Within, time seemed to stop in the boutique. While stylists fluttered, Grace remained motionless, surrounding her, calculating, choosing, textiles, combing through hair. She said not much, but she looked in the mirror, observed her reappearance. The filth of streets turned to silk, the darkness, her eyes softened beneath them. Her stance, erect, as she emerged out. In the dressing room, Logan gasped. She wore a delicate yet elegant deep emerald gown, catching the hue, holding on to her, sways with a carefree grace. Her eyes that were once covered now glistened under gentle lighting. I don't recognize myself, she muttered. Neither do I, Logan said in a quiet voice. But you see, outstanding, the Metropolitan Grand during the gala. The ballroom was alive with aristocracy and power. Above the rows, crystal lights glistened, of CEOs, fashion elites, Broadway stars, and philanthropists. When Logan and Grace arrived, rumors, wildfire-like ripples. Who is she? One socialite whispered. She's sweetheart, added another. But without a doubt, not from this area. Grace sensed the 1,000 stare burn. She held on to Logan's arm. They're all watching, she said. Whispered. Let them, he said in a whisper. You fit in here. However, Grace wasn't persuaded. Each and every champagne glass felt like a test when it was provided to her. Each and every, the room's laughter sounded practice. She remained silent during the first half hour, talking little and grinning courteously. Then something changed. While talking with a tech billionaire and Grace, his trophy wife, spoke abruptly. Up, her words. Have you ever wondered how many brilliant people are there? Quietly, went past on the streets each day, just because they don't dress appropriately. Shoes. The pair blinked and said, silence. Logan grinned. You don't know to whom are you speaking? The wife said. Icily, you don't either, Grace replied, lifting her glass. And that's the issue, isn't it? Logan's hand lightly stroked her back. He was filled with pride. She wasn't barely making it across this room. She was shaking it. Once the evening was over, Logan had changed in some way. He wasn't keeping an eye on Grace as a man who was amused by his own whim, observing her as a man, understanding the world was always smaller than him. And right before they departed, Grace leaned in the ballroom and inquired, why me? Logan looked directly into her eyes. Since you're the sole individual in this room who isn't acting like someone, they're not. Have you ever had a meeting who utterly contradicted your perception of the entire world? 3 days went by. 3 long, empty days every moment Grace entered that elevator and vanished from Logan's life. He made an effort to stay occupied. PR, investor calls, and board meetings, strategy meetings, but nothing was completed. The quiet she departed from. His food sat in a chilly flat, unaltered. His penthouse's vista, previously a source of pride, now simply reminded him of his immense height, lived, and how distant he'd always been, distracted from the important things in life, pancakes and laughing. Her fire when, at the gala, she raised her voice as soon as she remarked, looking him in the eye. I'm still counting down the quarters to make a purchase. Coffee. He was plagued by those moments. It wasn't made any simpler by tabloids. Pictures had gone viral, and all media outlets had, its account of what transpired, depicted it as a contemporary version of Cinderella. It was dubbed irresponsible PR suicide by others. Logan was even accused by some of producing, for attention, the entire thing. The worst were the posts on social media, analyzing her attire, her stance, and her worth. Although they were unfamiliar with Grace, nevertheless, he sat at his desk and judged her, looking at her name late one night, on a yellow notepad, scrawled, Grace. Her last name was unknown to him, just a memory, no location, no phone number. Nevertheless, that one name had emerged as mean to him more than any transaction he's ever made. Closed, a part of him jerked, got up, picked up his coat, and walked away, without communicating with his employees. No driver. Logan walking alone without an assistance. He went back into the cool night, that night's steps, the bench beneath, Lexington's flashing street lamp, the corner bodega where he would initially saw her profile in the window reflection. The bench was now deserted, the rain piercing the air. After an hour and a half, he inquired, at the bodega, an elderly man. I've seen her, he added, shrugging, but she has been moving around for a few nights. Logan turned, leaving a voice in his wake. He pierced the darkness. You truly? Do you not know how to give up? Grace was there when I turned around, stood slightly within the illumination of the lamplight, her coat crossed. Her hair was buttoned up to her chin, retreated this time, revealing her. Her eyes were worn yet clearly present, appeared more mature, sage, robust, and the mere sight of her made Logan's heart ache. He said, I've been searching everywhere. I understand, she said, her tone softer than, I saw you 2 nights ago. He recalled, from the other side of the street. I wasn't prepared. He moved forward hesitantly, and she shrugged her eyes now, looking into his, I'm not sure yet, but I'm not here to run indefinitely. Put any pressure on you. I simply had to see you. To claim that none of the events wasn't real between us, not for me. Glanced at him and then down. Are you truly ready for what's ahead of me? Since I'm still that sleepy girl, in chilly weather, next to a heating vent. It's still me who enters cafes, only to go to the restroom. I'm still the man who never stops contemplating. From the first time you walked, he answered, into that ballroom. And now, I am aware of the risks I am willing to take. She allowed, exhaling, part laughing, part incredulity. This isn't a love story, Logan. The glass slipper isn't there. Miracle change. I don't even possess a bank account. But I'm not trying to find, he said, magic. I'm searching for someone genuine, a person who can see through, someone who helped me recognize that I've been leading a life that appeared to be full of outside, but was vacant on the inside, and they were both silent. Thick and sensitive once more, and Grace then gave the smallest grin, 1 cup of coffee. I'm only promising that the diner was almost. Booths were faded and vacant as they entered. A waiter who had obviously worked all, since the 1990s, working nights. But it felt unlike any penthouse. It was warm. Grace added 2 coffees to Logan's order, side of the toast plain. They discussed loss, regarding the individuals that vanished, concerning the wait, when things became difficult, of acting as like nothing is wrong. Grace revealed details about her fiancé, about the nights, the job she loved and lost. She sobbed to go to sleep under a slender blanket when sirens blare in the separation. Logan informed her of his sibling, had not communicated for years. The father, who was solely concerned with numbers. The applause-filled rooms that are empty. Yet without sincerity, the hours passed quickly, invisible. Eventually, their hands discovered one another across the table. Romantically, only 2 individuals who had been too long in the cold. As the sun rose, with a whisper, Logan said, Come home with me. I need time. Grace said hesitantly. I must stand alone once more before I'm able to stand next to someone. I'll wait, he said, without hesitation, for however long it takes. And he did. 2 weeks passed. He didn't called but failed to send his driver. But each and every, he placed a new bag close to the bench, foodstuff in a sealed envelope, a note, toasty socks, no demands, simply gifts. After that, one wet afternoon, she entered his office. Her jacket was fresh. She didn't have ripped shoes. Her expression appeared unclouded. Her eyes grew brighter. I have a job, she declared, proudly standing, a part-time clerk at the small independent business, Brooklyn-based publisher. Not much, it's mine. Though, and it's honest, Logan stood. Grace, that's incredible. I'm not prepared for magazine covers or mansions. She went on to say, however, I could be prepared to allow someone is walking next to me. Logan grinned. Then I'll do precisely that. And in the months that followed, they reconstructed things cautiously and slowly. Their dates were just strolls through Central Park, evenings spent in second-hand bookshops, in her small space, laughing over grilled cheese. Queen's apartment. She gave him a reading, poetry. She learned chess from him. She occasionally withdrew when they argued. However, Logan consistently came back because he realized that love wasn't a show, it was perseverance. On a Sunday morning, they sat on the twisted legs of the fire escape, beneath a communal blanket, cups of inexpensive coffee, keeping their hands warm. Logan took a folded sheet of paper out of his pocket of the coat. What's this? Inquired Grace. Wondering, he said. A story I wrote, giving it to her, concerning a man who, the most crucial factor was thought power. Item until a woman pointed out to him that the only money that was important. She opened the document. The title is breathtaking. The Young Woman, written by Logan Whitaker. Beneath the lamppost, silently, tears welled up in her eyes. I adore, he said, his voice just above a murmur. She didn't respond right away. She gave him a serious look, and she then bent over and gave him a kiss. And her forehead was resting on his. That said it all. Later in the year, Grace did not take up residence in Logan's penthouse. They leased a modest Brooklyn brownstone. She continued to work. He reduced his size. The press continued. The headlines dwindled. However, the silence between them didn't last, since what they constructed wasn't a spectacle. It served as a haven. We want to know if you think individuals from two distinct worlds can actually locate their approach to one another. Do you believe Grace was correct to take a break earlier, saying yes once more? Would you have waited, as Logan did, or would you have gone for a walk? If you were moved by this story, remark 100 below to notify us of your presence. We would be delighted to hear from you. Which nation? From where are you watching? Additionally, if you have faith in second chances and take your time. Sincere love, kindly tell the tale thus. There is another person who remembers what hope looks like.